How's it going, everybody? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer, coming at you with a quick little video. Got something important I want to talk about here. Not important, but before we get into that, the first thing, a little bit of a PSA for those in this little niche community that we have here. If you see a YouTuber by the name of A Volp, be fully aware of this guy. He's bad news. This is I presume a basement dweller based out of the UK, and he prides himself on doxing people in the community and digging up personal information. That's about as far as I'm going to go with that, but it's well known. He's been around for a while. He used to post comments on Darius Truxton's channel, and at one point he was banned from Darius's channel. That might have been maybe over a year and a half ago. And then, for whatever reason, Darius invited this guy back into his community. So, yeah, you're going to want to be careful of this guy. He is a doxer. He does like to dig up personal information, as evident by a recent video he posted on OEB Pete, talking about personal information that was really none of this guy's business. And, if Darius is watching this, you can't go around saying that you don't condone doxing when you invite this creep into your comment threads with open arms. You really need to give your head a shake, man. Now, on with today's video. I want to talk about something really quickly here. We're talking about the Evercade VS, or the Evercade Versus. Now, a little bit of backstory. I posted a video a couple weeks ago, 2 videos, maybe even 3, and I was talking about the Evercade Versus. And I also mentioned PK in the Universe, who's a pretty big advocate of this console. Now, I do want to say first and foremost, I do apologize to PK in the Universe. Obviously, my videos were completely satire, harmless in nature, but after the fact, I went back and started watching some of PK in the Universe's historical videos, his timeline, and I got to know the guy a little bit better. He's a war veteran, and I really enjoyed watching a lot of his older videos, and I'm sort of getting caught up on his backstory and his history with gaming. So I've started to communicate with him, obviously via comments on his videos, and I'm enjoying his content. Haven't had my morning coffee yet, and he's actually a really good guy. So I just want to give a shout out to PK in the Universe. I shouldn't have, even though it was harmless in nature. Looking back on it, it was probably in bad taste because I didn't know the guy, and not that I know the guy personally per se, but now that I've again gone back and familiarized myself with some of his content, that's something to be said. If you're watching a channel out there, you discover a channel or somebody in the community that you don't think highly of, sometimes you do need to sort of go back and watch some of their older videos to get a better understanding of who the person is, right? We've all done it. We've met somebody, and within 30 seconds, we're sort of judging them based on initial impressions. But then after you get to know somebody, you find out they're not that bad at all. And it's like that in all walks of life. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad people in this world, but there's actually a lot of good people in this world. And there's been so many times where I got a bad impression from somebody, but then I got to engage with them one-on-one on a personal level, and you come to find out a lot of people out there don't mean anything bad. But the same can't be said about this A Volp character. You really got to be careful. So getting back to the topic at hand here, talking about the Evercade VS. So I was talking to somebody in the community. I'm not going to name his name because although I do talk to him and communicate with him back and forth, he doesn't really like to be name dropped in these types of videos, and I totally respect that. So we were watching some of DJC Game Studios videos where he was doing some sort of like let's play of some Evercade VS carts that have recently come out. And one thing that this guy picked up on, and now I'm picking up on it too, going back and watching some of these videos. A lot can be said with regards to a controller for a video game console. It can make or break the experience in some ways. It can actually hinder your ability to not only play these games, but to be able to get good at them. I think a lot of you guys can agree with me on that. And it can be sort of the opposite effect as well. I have a Microsoft Xbox One Elite controller. And hey, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it makes me a better gamer, but it does give you just a little bit more confidence when you're playing these games. Maybe it is, the old, how do they say it? The pill effect, where you take the pill and you think, things are changing, but they're the same. The placebo effect. Anyhow, with the Evercade versus, watching DJC Game Studios play these games, you can hear the controller creaking and cracking, making all kinds of noises. And when you look at this controller, you can see it's just not a good controller. The D-pad looks mushy. This just does not look like a controller you would want to use to play these games. It doesn't look built to last. And in a way, I kind of get it. Evercade, they don't want to include an expensive controller with the console because that's going to obviously drive the cost of the console up. But at the end of the day, for a lot of people out there, they're going to buy this console and they're going to play it with this controller. And again, it's going to hinder the experience. So a lot could be said with regards to the company Analog. When they released their consoles, they didn't include controllers with them. You could purchase a controller for those consoles, but it was basically an 8-bit DO or 8-bit DO controller that was included. And those 8-bit DO controllers are held in high regard. They are of the best quality, and they represent, the original SNES controller, the Genesis, the Saturn, to a high degree. So I could understand and commend Analog for giving the consumer the option to purchase those controllers, but not including a cheap-ass controller. Could you imagine if Analog included a controller with those expensive high-end FPGA consoles, and the controller was of the quality of what you're seeing here for the Evercade Versus? Just imagine what people would think. Wrap your head around that. So, the same could be said with regards to, maybe some of you guys will disagree with me, the SNES Classic, NES Classic, and even the Sega Genesis Mini, the reproduction controllers that come with those mini consoles. I'm sorry, they're not as good as the original controllers for those original consoles. They have no weight to them. They're extremely flimsy. They're just not as good. They're obviously the same form factor, but that's as far as I go. I'm sorry, they're just not as good. So there is hope. If you have an Evercade VS, I'm reading this right on the Evercade website. There are many third-party USB-A controllers that are supported with the Evercade VS. The 8-bit DO controllers work. PS4 controller wired, PS5 controller wired, it says. Xbox 360 wired controller. Xbox One controller wired, it says. Microsoft adaptive controller. So fortunately, there are some options. So that's what I'm going to sort of leave it at here. If you do purchase an Evercade VS, and maybe PK in the universe, if you're watching this, you can chime in the comments below. I don't have one of these consoles, so obviously I've never really held the controller. I'm limited as to what I could say, but I would recommend probably going the route of not necessarily using a third-party controller, but if you've got one of the controllers mentioned here on the compatibility list, let's be honest here, you're probably better off using one of those controllers than the controller that comes with the Evercade VS. So that was my little rant today. These third-party controllers can often mar or ruin the gameplay experience. And this is nothing new. We have seen this for years. Going back to, like I said, the NES days or the Genesis, some of those third-party controllers are absolute trash. So Yeah, so leave it in the comments below. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great